In this lesson, we're going to talk about text functions in Excel. The more you work with Excel, the more you're going to need to manipulate the text that comes into a cell. Maybe you need to grab a couple characters off the front or the back. Maybe there's extra spaces in it. Maybe the capitalization isn't exactly how you want. There's a lot of different things you can use text functions for. We're not going to go over every function, but we're going to go over the ones that I think are most utilized and most beneficial on a day-to-day basis. So before we get started, let's make sure we're on the text functions, and I'm going to zoom mine in a little so you guys can see better. And then on the formulas ribbon, let's go to the text function library, click that down arrow, and you'll see there's a bunch of text in here. We're going to look at clean, we're going to look at exact and find and left and len and lower and what else? And value. There's a couple more we're going to look at too, but that'll get us a good base. So what I've done here is I've just put the function we're going to look at in these little sections, and in some cases I actually have the answer there. So let's look at this first one for left. We've got text in a cell, and we know the left two characters are the state of the product. So we want to pull those out of the text. So one way you can do that is with the left function. And I'll go ahead and use the function builder to start, but we're going to type some of these in by hand too. So here, we're going to look for the left function. Got it. And it's asking for the text. That's the string containing the characters you want to extract. That's this one. And then how many characters do you want to extract? Do you want to do 5? Well, look, there's our preview. It's NC-12. We don't want 5, we just want 2. So we'll just type 2 or just click on 2 right there. Oops, I got too much in there. And click OK. And see. So the right function is in similar vein except for it's pulling characters off the right. So let's go ahead and let's just type that one, equals right. And you see it still gives you the names of the arguments. It needs text and then a number of characters. So I'll click on that text, hit a comma, and then go to the number of characters I want to pull out. 25251, that's the last 5 characters for sure. Now we're going to talk about the mid function. So the mid function actually lets you pull text out of the middle of text, and not necessarily the middle, but somewhere in between the beginning and the end. In this case, we know exactly where it is and how to pull it out. So we're just going to demonstrate that function now. So I'll go ahead and hit delete. And now I can do equals mid. And then what's my text? My text is this. Where do I want to start from? How about position 20? And then I want to grab 8 characters. So I'll hit comma and do that again. And you see mid pulled out the characters that we were looking for. Now, I know what you're saying. You have to count up and know where it is, but you're going to learn some other functions that'll help you find out where to start and things like that. But for now, just demonstrating that mid does just let you pull out that text somewhere in the middle. Okay, len. What is this one? So len will actually tell you the length of your text. So as I told you, in this one I have the answer in there already. So what am I looking at? 23. But here's my text here. It says extra. That's only 5 letters. So what's going on? Let's try to do it again. Then we can see what happened. So I'll click delete. I'll hit equals len, parenthesis, and click on extra, and the other parenthesis. And it's 23 again. Okay, this tool is super useful because looking at this, it's only 5 characters. But you know what? We can't see when people hit a bunch of space bars after text. So if I go into this cell and I go to edit it, you can see I've got a bunch of spaces between the end of the word and the word extra. Look at all those spaces I got in there. So if I was trying to join that with some more text, those spaces would be put in there. So that's where len can be really useful to figure out what's going on if some of your text is not behaving as expected. Okay, so now let's do find. And here's where we want to find out where a word is in another piece of text. So here I'm going to look for the word drive in this address, 2228 Viking Drive, Columbus, Ohio. So, and there's a start down here also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and we're going to use the function builder for this one because it's a little trickier the first time. So now what it's asking me initially is pretty straightforward. It's asking me what text do I want to find first. So I'll click on Drive, and then where am I looking? What's it within? I'll click on my address, and then where do I want to start? What character do I want to start searching for that text in? And we're just going to say 1 for now, and then click OK. And it came back with 13. So let's check that out. I click in here, and I'll count over with the arrow keys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's the 13th character. So you know that that's where that starts inside of the address. Now let's look at the trim function. We've got as our base text this sentence here. This text contains a lot of extra space, but there are a ton of extra spaces all throughout it, and we want to get rid of those. So that's what trim will do. Trim will go into your text and take out any extra spaces. So there's just one space between each word. So I'll go ahead and delete that, and then we can just build this one together. Equals trim, and click on that. Click OK. And you see how it just took all those extra spaces out and left us with a well-formatted text. So now let's work with a couple functions that will help us impact the capitalization of our text. So right now our sentence up here has some really crazy capitalization. It's all over the map. This sentence has all kinds of inconsistent formatting. So we've got 3 functions that we can use to change the capitalization within text. The first one is upper. Hit equals and I'll type upper and left parenthesis, and it's just expecting some text. So I'll click that, and it made everything uppercase. Well, what do you think lower is going to do? Let's give it a shot. And click that. And as expected, it changed everything to lowercase. And proper is another one that's kind of interesting to use sometimes. I'll just type it in so you see what happens. So proper case basically capitalizes the first letter of every word. I've seen this convention sometimes in reports or small papers where they really want to add emphasis to something and just have that capitalization. But it's just good to know that it's there. Okay, let's talk about concatenate and the ampersand. So we might sometimes get an Excel spreadsheet that has text in multiple cells and we want it all pushed together. So that's what concatenate is going to help us do. Let's go ahead up here and use the function builder again. And this time I actually have a couple of choices. Let's look at concat. Concatenates a list or range of text strings. Okay, that sounds right. Concatenate joins several text strings into one text string. They sound about the same, and they probably are. So we'll just go with concatenate on this one. And what's our first text? It's going to be 2228 Viking Drive. And you see here how it's building that text right for us. So keep an eye on that as I add things to it. Now we want a space between the address and the city. So we'll put that on text 2. Then on text 3, we want to put the city. And then on 4, we want a comma and a space. And lastly, we'll pick the state and the zip code and click OK. So it came back very nicely formatted by combining text with the concatenate function. Now the ampersand will do the same thing. It's a little more manual and it's not actually a function. So let's just see how that works. I'm going to hit equals and I'll click on my address. Then I'll do ampersand. That separates different pieces of text. So I've got to put a space in there and then put the ampersand again and click the city. And now I'm going to do ampersand again so I can put the comma space in there. And then one more time for the state and zip code. Okay? Which one of these are better? It's kind of up to you, because look, the results are exactly the same. So again, multiple ways to do the same thing. Pick the one that you like. Our next function that we're going to look at is called clean. And sometimes in your text, you can have what they call non-printable characters. If I look at the text I have here, another line is actually on another line. And no matter what I do to format, it's going to stay there because there's an actual new line character in there. Now, for those of you who are wondering how that works, let me just go ahead and show you. When you're typing in a cell, if you want to force another line, if you hit Alt Enter, you get extra lines within that same cell. Okay? If I hit Enter, now you see there's all this here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to clean that up though. So I'll delete this. And now I'll type in my function name. And I'll click on my text. And there you have it. Took out all those new line characters and just put everything on one continuous line of text. Exact. Now this is a function that lets you compare two pieces of text to see if they're the same. Let's go ahead here and just do that. I'll click on text 1 and then I'll click on text 2. I'll hit a comma for text 2 and use parentheses. And it came back as false. So exact is really useful because sometimes when you're testing for equivalency, as long as the word's the same, it sees it. But exact has noticed that our first word has a lowercase e and the second has uppercase e. So if I change that, then it's true. Now let's look at the value function. Sometimes when you pull in data from other sources, Excel can see the numbers as just text. And that will really kind of wreak havoc with equations because it won't calculate. So sometimes you need to take text that looks like it's a number and turn it into an actual number that Excel recognizes. And to do that, you can use the value function. So I'll click OK and type equals. And it returns back the value. Now, one little bonus I will tell you, there's another way to do that I use all the time, is I just add 0 to the number. So if I say equals that plus 0, since I did some math with it, Excel automatically tried to convert it to a number too. So for me, that's easier, but there is a value function just to see what the value of that cell is. Okay, well that about wraps up what we're going to cover in text functions. There's a few more. I think most of them that we didn't cover aren't used very often. But remember, you can always go back up to your formula bar and look them up, and then it will tell you what it's going to do, and you can kind of experiment that way. All right, let's get on to the next lesson.